Today is, what is it? August 28th. Science of the Southland 181. It is a Monday evening. It is storming loudly outside of my place in Midtown Atlanta. The lightning was fierce. The thunder was fierce, but I think it's fading away to where it will not jump scare me mid-recording, thankfully.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it just got a little worse down here on the south side. So,
oh no. Well, let's hope your power sticks around and doesn't
yeah,
do things to this recording session. We're going to start in New York City, of all places. Chris Eubanks is currently playing his first round U.S. Open match. He's up 2-1. We'll all know what happened by the time this comes out, but he's looking pretty good to make it through the first round as the 28th seed. I think we had mentioned that after his Wimbledon stuff that he was probably going to get a proper seeding in New York, and he did indeed. He's the 28th seed, playing a South Korean named Kwon. I do not Stephen Kwon, the Cleveland Guardians second baseman, but some other guy named Kwon.
Fair enough.
And then a women's basketball note, Raven Boswell, who's one of the freshmen last year, transferred to Pitt. She was not really getting many minutes, probably wasn't going to get many minutes because we have a pretty darn good recruiting class this year that probably was going to usurp her immediately. So that is the update in women's basketball. Jake, we have a new thing at Georgia Tech that we haven't exactly had in about a year and a half, maybe more.
It's called a quarterback?
A starting quarterback.
There we go.
Let's go. Even a depth chart. Hey, we have a depth chart, too, that can define a starting quarterback, too. Imagine that.
I mean, I kind of like it. I kind of dig it. It makes it easier to follow what's going on.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and we'll talk about volleyball in a minute here. That was always a very reliable thing about Michelle Collier. You know who's going to start. Yeah, that's a very reliable thing about softball and baseball and men's basketball and women's basketball. Heck, the tennis lineups. We know what's going on, and you can kind of track it through. With football, I mean, yes, there are people who are starting games, but I feel like it's just good to have more definition there, especially because it's the sport with the most different positions. So there's a lot to keep track of.
And it's one of the most important positions in sports just in general in terms of outcomes to games and how well your team performs in the first place. Excuse me. So Canes King, the Texas A&M transfer sophomore this year, as Brent Key said in his press conference, he does have a long leash as well. So it's not like he just barely, maybe he did barely just beat out Zach Pyron, who reportedly was also like kind of pissed that he lost the job because competition and all that kind of stuff. So that's good to hear from him. But Mr. Key also said that all three of Gibson, Pyron, and King are probably going to see time, which I just assume means he's got plans for South Carolina State, and that's how that's going to roll. But Haynes King does have a long leash, according to head coach, so I would imagine at least the first half of Louisville, and then assuming things have not gone to the dumpster, we will see him play through the Louisville game as the actual starting quarterback. I did want to ask Jake, what do we remember from the spring game of him playing? I was on the student section side. I guess all of us from the student section side for the most part. I know you were in a different spot in the stadium.
Yeah.
But he laid it, like, just from my eye test of what I've seen, he laid in some pretty good balls that day. Granted, they weren't running that many plays and receivers were wide open everywhere. So it was kind of easy to hit guys. But in general, I liked his touch.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was slinging it a little bit. One thing I don't know if you saw this, and for all the listeners out there, you can check it out on the Tech YouTube channel. But he was on ACCPM, and they kind of went into some of the selection process. Right, yeah. I know we kind of noted the calling the guys and whatnot. So go check that out if you want to hear from Haynes himself a little bit there. And it is always good to check out Ramblin' Rec Tube, if that's still the handle. Maybe I'm dating myself there. What it is anymore. But yeah, no, he was slinging it around the yard. I think at least my recollection is that I walked away from that being pleasantly surprised, which I was not expecting to be. I don't know. I very much had my preset notion of, Zach Pyron being able to, command the ball well. I think it's honestly kind of refreshing or even good to not have to say like, hey, Zach, you know how you were good last year and then, broke your collarbone? Well, you don't have to rush it back. We've got, two good options. I mean, I wouldn't want him to be so upset that he transfers or something like that. But I don't know. I'm also not convinced that this isn't a psyop of like, the I don't know if you remember this, but the UNC game, Jeff Sims came back in 2021. Jeff Sims came back. It was the one at Mercedes-Benz, actually. Came back from being injured, Sims. And they like put him in on the second drive, and it was, or maybe it was even the second series. But anyways, they put him in. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's Jeff Sims. And then like that was kind of like, I don't know, we got like a second score in a row or something like that and put the game away. So all that said, I'm not convinced that this isn't just some crazy psyop, and I'm not convinced that we won't see both of them play during the season. But it feels like a pleasant surprise, honestly, because at first I was a little disappointed. I think Pyron's a good player, but the more I think about it, I'm like, the two aces strategy, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, granted, there's been a lot of practice time that has happened since the last time Byron played in a game. And even back in the spring game, we were like, hey, really, it's 50-50. Like, we knew Byron was maybe just the fan favorite at the time because we knew who he was, but that's just face recognition. Like, that's just knowing the guy that we had and not getting a good sense of how good Gibson, or not Gibson. We know Gibson's not starting, that King can be. So, also apologies that we said we thought it was going to be we said, me and Joey said we think it's going to be Pyron, and then literally the day of our posting our last episode they announced King as the quarterback. So that was hilarious. Only make the best predictions on podcasts here at Scions of the Southland.
That means you got to go back and edit it and make a really fake sounding voiceover to be like,
man,
I'm Jack, and I think Haynes King will be the starting quarterback for the 2023 season.
That'd be funny. That'd be funny. Oh, we let history live as it was made. Let's look forward to Louisville. Akshay's not here to tell us to not predict these games, so I am totally fine with predicting this game. But before we get there, let's talk about it's a Mercedes game, so tailgating's a little bit of a different scene here. For those that are going, you have some new options since the last time we had a game there. There is Wild Leap Brewing in, I don't remember what the building is called.
The old Norfolk Southern building.
Old Norfolk Southern building. There is a pedestrian bridge that will take you straight there from the stadium as well. It's painted very, very bright blue, so you can't miss it if you're looking anywhere in that general direction towards Castleberry Hill.
They did a great job with that, actually, because that was kind of one of my reactions when they first built the stadium. Was like, there's not that much around here, and Castleberry Hill's really come a decent way since then. Hopefully, South Downtown comes next, but you know, got to start somewhere. So good job.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, there's what else? You mean there's the grid. There's stuff all downtown if you're wanting to do that kind of stuff. I don't know if I assume CNN Center will be open. There's also Atlantucky Brewing, which is a little bit of a walk on Northside Drive. But that is there. That's one of the only black-owned breweries in Atlanta. I know I'm part of Footy Mob, which is an Atlanta United supporters group, and we've done a lot of events there with them. They're cool. They're cool folks down in there. They're in Castleberry Hill as well, so not hard to get to from the stadium. I assume there'll be other, because it's the Aflac kickoff game. I assume there's going to be like other like sponsored stuff going on in the International Olympic Plaza and stuff like that. So there'll be stuff to do. I think it'll be fun. I sadly will not be there. So I'll let y'all have your fun that day. The game is at 7 p.m. It will be nationally broadcast. So this is, as we've mentioned before on previous pods, like a massive, massive advertising day for the school. Winning will do a lot more than just put a 1 in the tally books. Like that will leave an impression on people that maybe want to come here, people that are thinking about coming here to play football, people that are thinking about coming here to do school, work here. You never know. So winning football games does have a lasting impact on national TV beyond just, we won a football game.
Jack, would you say that those people are coming here to play school?
Of all places in the United States of America to come play school, we are one of the places to play school and play it very, very aggressively. So, currently we are 8-point underdogs. Jake, does that feel right?
I don't know. I feel like Louisville's got a lot of incomers. We talked about coaching staff. We didn't really touch on just how many transfers they have, including us now having their second leading rusher. So for all Georgia Tech lost a lot of starting production, which we did. Nate McCollum's at UNC for one, and for a variety of others, Hassan Hall, et cetera. There's just, that's how college sports work. There's a fair bit of turnover.
Yep.
I don't think that's really getting talked about enough. And I'm not convinced that our defense won't be just a pretty stout unit and take care of business at least enough to keep us in the ball game. Maybe a score feels right. I'd probably feel more if I were a somebody who bet against Tech, which I'm not. I don't really do sports gambling in general, but if the line was closer to 4, I'd be like, okay, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of unknowns about both of these teams,
Yeah,
and I
I
think
agree.
that's where a lot of the Tech side of the confidence is coming from. But when you play the schedule game, if you look at it from, and I think it was basketball. We've referenced basketball conference a lot lately, but I've been listening to particularly the previews that Joey and Mike and Scott have been doing about ACC teams that we play. And they made a good point not against Syracuse, in the Syracuse preview, where it was, if you're prognosticating looking at the schedule as a Syracuse fan, you look at the Georgia Tech and you're like, that's a win. You're a Georgia Tech fan, you look at the Syracuse game and you're like, that's a win. So one, who knows? And two, I mean, a lot of this just is that prognostication, right? You can get a bunch of transfers in that have had maybe some success elsewhere, were highly touted high school recruits, but it's fitting them into a system. How do they work with the people that are there? How do they work with 2 new coaching staffs? I mean, this is about as question mark of a game as you could possibly get, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be, I kind of like how there is a lot of unknown going here on both ends.
Yeah.
Like it's just that makes it just a fun game on both ends. It's not like last year's Clemson game where it's just boring. They assume they're gonna win and kill us. There's like, okay, no, there's a lot of discovery to happen that night.
And that's kind of a good point, or I guess to tie it back into the Haynes King thing. Out of anything, he might be one of the biggest knowns of all those unknowns. Because
yeah,
it's moderate success to at least experience at Texas A&M. That's about as much of a track record as you can get. I don't know, not to be a Jeff Brom disbeliever, but him a couple of years deep in Purdue, lost to Syracuse last year and was 36 and 34 in his tenure. So I get that they got their guy, but I'm just not convinced. And that's why I play the games, right? I think it'll make for a good matchup. And based on some of my friends' experience trying to pick up second and third tickets and whatnot for other folks that are going to be in town for this game, it seems at least to have been sold reasonably well. So
good.
I'm hopeful that it translates into a good or a solid crowd too.
That will be awesome if so. Prediction wise, here's where I'm landing. I think you're right about the 8, that the touchdown spread feels about right for now, because you can kind of only really go off prestige and what you kind of happened last year for week 1, week 0 game. So it's already a little off. It's just it's a guessing game. It's people like us just throwing stuff into the wind and maybe it catches in Vegas. Who knows? I'm gonna guess a 4-point loss here. That is my as unbiased as I could be prediction, but the ceiling of what I think can happen is like a 2-touchdown win for us.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable result. I think Tech gets a little bit of a bump just from being home and all the benefits that
it is home,
come with that. I mean, it doesn't feel like home, but it is a home game.
It's the third time we've done this. Like it's the third time we've done this. Like it's getting there. I think the idea is to try to make a second home out of that stadium.
Yeah, and it. I mean, we don't have to rehash that. I think we did a whole podcast episode about it when it was announced. But I don't know. In terms of predictions, I'm gonna be a little rosy. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a 1-score win for Tech. I think. I mean, if you think about it in like a distribution, it's about as close to a normal distribution centered over that maybe 2 to 7 points in the Louisville direction as you can get in a game. It doesn't feel particularly out of reach for either side to say that they have a fairly solid path towards a win here.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think if I say this as not really much of a Louisville football fan, but certainly a Louisville softball fan. Like I think knowing people on who have stakes on both sides, anyone who can walk away from a close game here with confidence for the rest of the season. It's not like oh no, like you're done. Like it kind of gives me the Florida State LSU vibes from last year, if that makes sense. Hey, that was a weird game, or hey, that was a close game, but both teams can kind of walk away and say like, hey, but a win would be great momentum boost. A win
would be fantastic and would do of all the must-win games this season. This is up there, I think, in the must-wins just to set things right for this year.
Yeah.
going into before we move on to cross country, what was it? Last week I recorded an interview with the president of the Peach Bowl, Gary Stoken, who's been the president of the Peach Bowl since 1998, and this is technically a Peach Bowl like run game. They've been running this opener for a while. Aflac's now the new presenting sponsor, and we go into the story of that and all this kinds of stuff around the game. We're gonna push that out on Thursday. So this comes out on Tuesday, and 2 days later, you got a special little 20-minute on your drive home to work or when you're in the grocery shop and whatever little thing with the guy that runs the business side of the game. So that'll be fun. Cross country. It's about to start. It is the third sport that happens in the year for tech sports. We read the schedule, but let's actually dive into some of the names here, Jake. We lost some guys. We gained some guys. This is not like, the biggest sport on campus because you can't really watch it on TV. But we've had some historic success in the last couple of years with Nicole Fegans, but she's no longer on campus anymore. So what's lay us a land that we're going to run on?
That was our talking point last year. Nicole's gone.
I know. That's still the talking point.
I was gonna say we graduated Liz Galarza this past year. The heyday of the Georgia Tech women's cross country team getting second in the conference in what was that, fall 2020 is sadly, fading into the background faster than you might hope. In terms of prognostication, I think this is a season that always kind of sneaks up on you and then it sneaks away from you. It's only 5 events long, which is certainly short as college events go. And I say 5 events, kind of a weird way to put it. Basically, there's 4 regular season weekends plus ACCs. They will go to the NCAA South region. I guess that's postseason. I guess the ACC is postseason too. I don't know. It's very strange. It's very strange. It's very quick. Like I said, Galarza out, graduated. James Cragen from the men's side also out, also graduated. Names to note from the men's side, you got Zach Yeager. He's a grad student. I believe that's his COVID year of eligibility then.
It would be, yeah.
You've got Nathan Solomon. Nathan Solomon is a name to watch simply because it's also, I believe, give me a second to do some thinking here. I'm going to do it live on air. Nathan, how long ago did Home graduate? Was that 2019? So all that to say, he's notable simply because his brother is one of the greatest to ever run for Tech. Nahum Solomon was a 5-year athlete at Tech. I think he spread an extra track winter in there somewhere. But yeah, graduated in 2019. So just a notable Tech name at the very least. In terms of the women's side, Mary Brady would definitely be the top of the list to take a look at in terms of the score sheets there. I think, she's a junior. So that'll be that. Jack, that's kind of all I got.
That's all we need. I don't
know if you have any other thoughts before we move on.
I think that's all we need. They go run. It's a very easy sport. Not nothing to analyze really here. They're gonna go do it, and hopefully we go win the things.
As somebody who's a terrible runner, I would not beckon to call it an easy sport, but I get the vibe of
it is functionally simple. That is what
straightforward.
It is. Functionally simple. That's where I was trying to get at. What is not functionally simple is trying to become the 11th ranked volleyball team in the country, which is what Georgia Tech volleyball is now. After winning both games in Tampa, they played South Florida, beat them in straight sets, played number 8 Penn State, beat them in 4, and beat them convincingly in 4 sets. It was easily one of the better games in Tech's regular season history. Their 25th ranked win against a ranked team in the regular season. Get rid of all the postseason games. And they look great, Jake. They look so freaking good, man. We were worried about how do you fill in Berkman? They retooled. They actually did it. That's what Calvé said they did, and they actually did it.
From what I can see from the from what I can tell from the just highlights and clips and things, I mostly watch this on the stat sheet. Part of it is my refusal to give ESPN any more money than they absolutely must take from me to get them live. Sorry, ESPN Plus. But just in terms of stats, it really seems like and this was something we talked about in our preview. It seems like the outside hitters, not named Julia Bergman, since she's no longer on the team, really stepped up. I mean, they were reasonably efficient. They were reasonably effective. I think that's pretty good to see, especially considering Penn State. And Penn State lost twice this weekend, but they played UF, who we missed. Their top 25 team. And they played us, and we're a top 25 team. So it's I don't know. I think that's the thing that first jumped right off the stat sheet at me, Jack.
I watched, I tried to read just some of like what the national tone was, just country, like nationally, just where did we get mentioned at all? Did people think we were worth anything? And there was very little on us at all, because I think the idea was like, well, we don't have Julia anymore, so that's it. They're 20th ranked because they're Tech, not because they actually had the team to be 20th ranked or higher, for that matter. And we played easily. And I would say Penn State didn't have a great day against us. I mean, they did get a set off against us, but I don't think it was their. I think they will have better games this season. I think they definitely have the talent for that. But in the first game against USF, like, Collier had her starting 7, which we were actually, our predicted one on our preview was wrong. We had Smiley Manyang as one of those middle blockers. She did not play really at all. Liv Bogridge at middle blocker starting. Deandra Pierce is the libero swap, so she's technically not on the court to start, but she's in the starting lineup. Bianca Bertolino, Paula Pimentel, Tamara Otene, Bella D'Amico, and Larissa Mendez, the freshman from Brazil, has been an absolute force, because she's 6'2", which is like basically the height of our middle blockers usually, but she's at middle blocker height, but playing right side pin. And that is absolutely making problems for at least it made problems for Penn State, because we had 3 legitimate outside hitters, between Bertolino having probably the most power on the team, Larissa just being tall on the front, and helping on blocks too. And then Tam kind of could rotate anywhere from a pin. She would go up front sometimes. She would be in the back line and do the flying spider monkey shots that people do from the back line, which are really cool. She only hit two. I have the image of Mary Brembia doing that from the back line. That's just what I think of every time I see someone coming from the back line.
I think seeing that coming out of not having sports for like 6 months for COVID and being back in a gym, because they only let like 10 people in that fall to O'Keefe, and seeing that was like, oh my gosh, like sports are back. So I get what you mean. It's
so thrilling. It's so thrilling. It's so thrilling.
Yeah. There's something that I talked about, the attack, and I want to kind of segue into this as kind of a related. The only set that I saw us have a negative hitting percentage, in that case, the errors exceeding the kills, if you will, was the second set against Penn State. Conveniently, also the one that Penn State won. In terms of how that translated, I'm curious, because it wasn't like Penn State was lighting up the score sheet with tons of kills or anything like that. And 8 errors is not too many it's not unreasonable for a good volleyball team playing a good volleyball team to have 8 errors in a set. Would you say that it was just Tech was a little quiet in the second set? Obviously, that's the one we lost. So I mean, it's the one to circle around on. But how did that kind of?
It definitely felt. I think it was a weird vibes one. Darren Suker and Leah Harper came in for a decent amount of those points as well. Which is what Kalia does. Like, if something's just off, just to try and change the vibes. She also tried that against USF in the first set, and both times it never really worked. Darren Suker, though, needs to get reps, because she's probably going to be, or she might be, our center next year. And Eloise Suarez was getting reps against South Florida, because she might be our center next year too, for all we know. They're both freshman setters, and we are probably losing D'Amico after this year. So, and Lauren Sandin played 1 point, which resulted in an ace for Penn State. So she saw literally 1 ball get hit, and that was it for her playing time on the court. Yeah, so it was mostly just a weird revive. Nothing. Everyone just has an off. I mean, all these good teams will just have an off. Once you play a team that's can be better than you have an offset. And Penn State was good enough to actually take advantage of that. So I mean, we had our errors by set against Penn State. It was 7 in the first, 8 in the second, 6 in the third and fourth as well. So it was happening. And yeah, we hit a negative 0.32 in that set, but we hit 237 in the first, 150 in the third, and we just rolled them in the fourth at a 357.
I was going to say that I made an illusion offline, just chatting with somebody, and I was like, yeah, the stats really jumped out, and the thing that came to mind was a 357 against Penn State is a pretty good place to be. Just the fact that Tech was able to notch 21 kills in a set is pretty good. It's pretty good. So no shame there. I did want to note a couple other items from the score sheet. Otene and Mendez led the attack with 17 and 14 kills apiece. Isabel D'Amico, of course, took most of the time at the set. Tech was very good in service, and this sees through to the advanced stats brought to you by Evolve with 2 L's .net. Tech actually wound up 5th in the country so far in terms of percentage of points won in service. So that means 55.1% of the time that Tech is serving the ball, they're getting the point. Which
we have to caveat this. We have to caveat this by the fact that they won 14 points in a row in the third set against South Florida, which will probably never happen. I mean, we've played 2 games. Everyone's only played 2 games, so we have one of the most outlier streaks already nationally. That might be the largest point streak already nationally. I haven't actually checked that, but that's absurd. That's an absurd streak.
Let's think stats though. If you're looking at how Tech fits in, that's the 99th percentile, that 55.1%. Say you do that in a streak of 6, lose 2 services in a row, and a streak of 6, you're only adding 2 to that pot where you're not getting it. You're still in the 95th.
Streaks of 6 are still rare. Streaks of six are still hard. I mean,
but I'm saying if you move it around.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Conceptually, you can still get to that same number in different variety. At least
very close.
Yeah. Serving wise, we're good. Our serving is good too. Like Bianca Bertolino now has the Kayla Kaiser serve where she throws it 50 feet in the air with topspin and then just throws a bullet on the other side. She only got 1 ace on it against Penn State. I think she got 2 or 3 against South Florida. But it's making it very hard for defenses to react to it. And then basically everyone else we have serving we generally grew. Like, we're taller between Mogridge and Mendez serving. Like, we have taller people serving, so we're getting more over the ball on our services. So it's on average just we're putting in a more dangerous first ball than we were last year.
Yeah, and that's a good point to kind of circle back on in terms of the dangerous first ball is you're really hitting into a pretty set defense. You're playing them in system.
Yeah,
that's going to be a time when, if ever, the opposing team is going to be able to receive that ball and to set up their attack, right? So if you're being effective in service, one, not giving them points back immediately. This is something that good volleyball teams do. They don't just put it in the net or put it long or put it wide or whatever, right? And 2, having a ball that is, whether it's spin or power or placement or it's probably some combination of all 3.
Yeah.
That's important, right? And you're not going to get somebody out of system necessarily with that, but you're going to make it challenging to receive that. And that certainly plays into having an effective play in service. And honestly, one of the things when you first texted me and Akshay that, Bianca Bertolino is really rocking this, the super high toss spinning.
I'm just calling it a power serve, basically.
Yeah, the power serve, if you will. That's a good way to put it. Is those are dangerous, right? There's so many timing aspects to that involve when you swing, how high you're throwing it, timing, probably a jump of some sort.
No, yeah, it is. Yeah,
push it long. You can, push it out to the sides. It's probably coming across pretty flat. So if you're not getting it at the angle, that's going into the net.
Yeah, that's important.
If you can do it well, and that's something that I honestly don't think her last year on the flats was as effective as the year before, but we've seen it done well. And we've seen it be effective. I think there's one game that Kayla Kaiser in the year that it was like super effective. She won like 10 straight points to stave off a loss on the road at NC State with that. And that shows the power of what you can do with a really effective, hard to defend serve.
Yep.
It's just you're increasing the points of error, the critical points, if you will, just by so much. But I mean, it's clearly effective on some level, even against a tall and athletic team like Penn State. It looks like she didn't have any service aces against USF.
No,
D'Amico had 3 though, so that's interesting.
Yeah, D'Amico had some just stuff that was hard to handle. Against Penn State, Bertolino had 23 serves, most on the team. She had 2 errors, but she did have an ace in there. That was the only ace of the game. Reception error wise, I know we've talked about how Paula Pimentel has been kind of one of the sore spots there, and she mentioned on our podcast during our volleyball preview that that is a focus for her game, is to work on reception, and she had 0 errors against Penn State. Otene had the only one that was marked down.
It's interesting that Otene and Bertolino did take a lot of that reception, but I mean, they're
the back line
the whole time.
They're the back line. Yeah, it's them 2 and Pimentel are on the back line, and those are who they're going to get the lion's share of these returns. Sandin had 1. Oh, she did have a return. Huh, fun. There was another return error that was 2 people running into each other, so they did not credit it to anyone specifically. Let's touch on blocking real quickly. That is the Liv Mogridge area. She had 4 against Penn State. It's mostly going to be her. She was still getting rotated out a decent amount for DeAndre Pierce. She had 2, but all the rest of our starters, the rest of the starters all had 1 or 2. And then dig wise, Pimentel had 21 to lead against Penn State. Larissa Mendez had 6. Bertolino got the only double Teka has so far this season. She had 14 digs with her 10 kills. And Mendez's 14 kills against Penn State are her new career high because, she's played 2 games. Today's 17 kills against Penn State was the most she was tied for the most she has hit in a Tech uniform. She had some 20-plus games when she was at Illinois State. So we have not yet hit her career high, but I would not be surprised if we eclipse that in one of these games because she's going to get a lot of attention. Also, last point. We meant last year we just kind of knew Julia was going to get kind of all of the attention for the most part on attack because it's Julia Bergman. You have to watch her and put at least 2 people on her to even have a chance at defending her. In terms of evenly distributing how the distribution was going to go without her, this is the number of attacks for our main 3 attackers. Bianca Bertolino, 39 attacks. Tamara Otene, 37 attacks. Larissa Mendez, 38 attacks. D'Amico just made it a total guessing game. You do not know where it's going to go. That is probably the best weapon we have right now is 3 equally, give or take, 3 very lethal outside hitter, right side, back line people who can put in a heavy ball with power and with good height as well. And D'Amico's going to make you guess where it's going to go at any given point. Yeah. That is huge. That's huge.
And I was going to say that's the point we made in our preview too, right? It'd be a shame and a not really good way to put it to say that it's addition by subtraction, but Mendez seems to be that piece plus growth from Otene and Bertolino to say, hey, there's no one transcendent star. Could Mendez get there?
Maybe.
I mean,
maybe.
Seems like it, but it's weekend 1.
She's doing good.
Let's give it a season. Right?
We'll give it a season. For week 1 as a freshman, she looked amazing. She cleared every hurdle we could have possibly asked her to clear.
And that was our big question mark, right? So there we go, right? And I think one of the points that Auction and myself and you all made was hey, what's Otene going to do? What's Bertolino going to do? They don't have that, feed Bergman to fall back on. And I think so far they've acquitted themselves. Obviously 2 tough road games coming up in Ohio State's building. They handled us pretty thoroughly last year.
They did.
I remember walking out of that match pretty mad.
That was a rough game. I'll note we are now ranked higher than Ohio State. Our 11th ranked is ahead of Ohio State's 12. So we will. I don't think there's betting lines for NCAA volleyball. I assume we're not going to be. I would not put us as the favorite whatsoever.
Pretty sickos.
Yeah, that maybe for the championships they do that. I don't know if that's what Vegas does here. But yeah, so we have back-to-back games this coming Friday and Saturday at 6:00, both nights in Columbus, Ohio.
I want to give some Ohio State season so far context. We are ranked higher than them in the the coaches poll, but the poll is the poll. Numbers are numbers. Ohio State's sitting at 8th overall. They're 3-0, so that probably helps them a little bit in terms of just stacking up more stuff, if you will. They're at a 62 rating in Evolve. We are at a 61. Not too far apart there. The delta on those rankings, I don't exactly know what they translate to. Texas is sitting at the top of the 64-7, and just a little bit more color in terms of who Ohio State plays. I'm sure that this factors into it at least a little bit. Their 3 games so far have been against Northern Kentucky, Bowling Green, and ETSU. So not really the same. Not Penn State, if you will. They did get taken to 5 sets against Bowling Green of note. So that's what I got, Jack.
Between all this, between us rolling and Ohio State having a little bit of trouble, I like our odds to at least put up a fighting chance to win one of these, at least one. We got 2 shots at it. We at least have 2 shots at it, which is nice. Last year, granted, we came off I think we played BYU before we played them last year, and we rolled over BYU, and then they just had our number that whole match. And they still have a couple of their big weapons from last year as well. So, we'll see how that goes. Recap wise, I will not be writing at all this weekend because I'm going to be on a farm in Ohio, weirdly like an hour away from Columbus, but kind of where the internet doesn't exist though. So, we will have some sort of something about that eventually. It's probably going to be on Jake. Jake, for all we know, is going to solo this coming week. We'll see how that goes.
We don't know when a podcast's coming out. We don't know if we'll do anything of that, but at some point I hope to at least write a little bit. So, or maybe I just sit in front of the mic and start rambling about being at the event on Friday, and then, volleyball.
Something. We'll get you something. Speaking of something,
figured
you can buy a little something from Section 103, can't you?
A new something too. Start of the football season means some fresh shirts. As much as I loved the Animal House at the Institute, just block letters, that does not appear to be in the cards. But what does is a Tech Gold The Institute shirt with the GT interlocking on it, which gives me more football vibes and less like, haha, I'm trying to be funny and make a reference vibes, which I think translates to a good shirt to wear to a sporting event. So I'm excited to see that there, as sad as I am not to get the Animal House nostalgia, if you will. That said, I am super excited for the other design, a big interlocking GT. And I don't know how this magic got pulled, but Jack, I don't know if you know, but when they standardized the brand, they got rid of a bunch of the like buzz doing, not like just being a bee things.
Yep.
And so I was pretty surprised to see the stiff arming buzz with the speed lines, like carrying a football on a shirt, let alone in the polls. But now we can buy that. I'm pumped. I was a sucker for the buzz with the wrench in the rec that they used to have on the MRDC. Just as much swimming buzz, whatever Buzz is doing, I vibe with that, right? So hopefully Buzz, is very inspirational to our team as they go out on the field on Friday. But you too can get a stiff arming Buzz football shirt that, dare I say, looks pretty slick and has rocketed up to the top of my list in terms of things to buy. They have it in performance and t-shirt, so definitely check those out. I did all this on the fly. I didn't have this planned out before I started talking, so hopefully the message is all conveyed there. But 2 new shirts, all in Tech Gold, perfect for this coming weekend and this coming season. Maybe if you're going to a volleyball game, don't wear the football shirt and buy the volleyball shirt. But they're both great, and it's exciting to be that time of year again. As always, free shipping on orders over $70 every day.
Times of years. We are now in. I mean, we're at the football one. It's happened. There was a football game in Ireland on Saturday.
It was not that exciting.
Not exciting. I stopped watching after 2 touchdowns. So I was like, I think I know how this is gonna go. So hopefully that's what we're gonna look like in Ireland next year. Just imagine if that's us.
As the son of a sidewalk Notre Dame fan and a bona fide Notre Dame hater, it's an interesting combo. Part of me was like, man, it was fun to go to South Bend as a kid, and the rest of me was like, I hope they lose to Navy. No triple option. But
it was cool. It was cool to see.
we all have lots of voices in our heads. What can I say?
Me too. With all the traditions that come with football season, ours on Science of the Southlands is we talk about the ACC tasting menu, and what we have coming up in week 1 is predictably a lot of cupcake games because you gotta get games on the schedule somehow. So that's what brings us games like Elon versus Wake Forest, which doesn't even have a line on Thursday. So I'm just not even going to bother saying that Elon's going to win because they're not good. Oh, you have something.
Well,
okay.
Well, I was going to say, so I've thought of at least one Jake's interesting take why you should watch this game for all of these games. I've highlighted one in yellow because that one's really, really interesting.
That one looks fun. That I do like the intra-New Yorkness of that.
There's a Wikipedia page about that one, but I'm getting to the point. Elon at Wake is one of it's an FCS game, but it's a regional FCS game, so there's at least some intrigue there. I like when the FCS game is like Tech versus Mercer, Tech versus Kennesaw, Tech versus South Carolina State.
Wake Forest.
Has that.
This is Wake Forest.
Has that energy.
Wake Forest versus FCS East if you're playing NCAA 14.
Fair enough. But it's local, it's regional. It's
cool.
It's
cool.
A good game.
Yeah, I'm glad they have. I'm glad they do that to also that that's money spent in their own state, which there's probably some cool economic factors to all that as well. Staying in North Carolina, actually no, not staying in North Carolina. North Carolina State plays at UConn the same evening Thursday. North Carolina State is a 14.5-point favorite at a school that I at one time thought might be good to add to the ACC. But that was 3 weeks ago before a lot of other things went down. I'm happy. I think I'm pretty confident in North Carolina State pulling this one off because UConn's an independent now, so it's hard to really measure them because they're not playing many serious teams out there nowadays. But they at least got these guys on the schedule, the Wolfpack.
Yeah. Oh man, that was a big thunder. Man, it just won't let up down here. But anyways, I think the thing that makes the UConn game interesting that I just want to linger on for a second is one, the fact that it's happening, sure. But two, I've seen a lot of oh my gosh, Cal's opening the season at University of North Texas, Power 5 on the road. Whoa. But I haven't heard anything about NC State going to UConn. And UConn is maybe even more of a sickos football program than UNT. Maybe not even a maybe. I think that's probably a definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my reason to watch is if you enjoy Cal at North Texas, then I got an NC State at UConn for you.
It might be better. It might be better. 2 games on Friday, including ours. The other one is the famed, if we weren't playing that night, this would absolutely be the game of the week for the obvious reason. It is Miami at Miami. Ohio at Miami, Florida. That is. The Florida version has a 17-point favorite. I have no idea how good Miami of Ohio is. So I feel confident also in say Miami of the Florida variant, the Coral Gables variant does the job here.
Yeah, they have the same name. That's nifty. That's my reason to watch line.
I'm glad they're doing this at least one time. You got to do the corny stuff every once in a while. We talked about our
somebody
game.
Was memeing in the front office there,
they just noticed, they have an open date. Why not? You'll get some kids to watch this game. We already mentioned our game and our predictions. Go Tech, please win Saturday. Probably the biggest one of the I'll say this, the second biggest of the second. It's in the top tier of the available FBS versus FBS games. It is Virginia versus Tennessee. Just because it's merely just an FBS versus FBS game because there's only so many of those in week 1. So you got to get them where you can. Tennessee's a 28-point favorite against Virginia, which that might even still be too low. That might be giving Virginia too much credit, honestly.
They're doing this at Nissan Stadium in Nashville too.
Oh boy, okay.
I think UVA sold the home leg of the home and home.
I see.
So that way, it would be like a fun road trip or whatever. These two teams have definitely diverged since this series was announced.
Yep.
So certainly interesting in that regard. I don't know. I was looking for interesting things. I think my interesting thing here is that, well, it'll be a fun road trip, and I'm sure Nashville on Labor Day weekend will have lots of folks out and about. So.
That
Wait, hold on. When does Vandy play? That might be a good. Yes, they do play Saturday. So if you really like your college football, you could go over to the active construction site field at Vanderbilt for a nightcap if you wind up in Nashville for this weekend.
they play Alabama A&M, where they are holding up the scoreboard by 2 cranes.
Yes, exactly.
Incredible stuff. Incredible. That's the sicko stuff right there. That's sicko's emblemized off field. Next game, Northern Illinois is going to Boston College. Boston College is a 9-point favorite. Northern Illinois is like, of the MACtion teams, like, definitely one of the better ones in general. Like, I would never rule it. Like, they played us. I think they played us pretty well, didn't they? Did we lose to them? Sorry. Oh, right, they beat us. Fuck.
Every word that has come out of your mouth in this string has just managed to make me more and more Jeff Collins mad.
I'm so sorry.
And I forgot about this game. Beyond being mad about Jeff Collins.
I forgot about this game. Oh, dear God.
There's a reason. It's because it was bad.
All right, we're skipping this. Wofford at Pitt. No line because it's Wofford playing at Pitt. What's fun about this game?
Wofford should be playing like Clemson or South Carolina or one of those FCS games that's down there. But for some reason, they were like, we all really want a Permane Brothers sandwich. And I don't hate on them for that. In terms of what's interesting, Wofford gives me like, they've played everyone in the ACC at some point vibes, even though I have no idea if that's true. And so I feel like they're always getting mentioned in things like this, or us talking about basketball or something like that. So that's my Wofford bit, or baseball. They're always just around.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Wofford.
They're nearby. They can be around. We actually got Clemson and South Carolina coming up later in this. All right. This is the one you highlighted. Colgate at Syracuse, the inter-upstate New York battle.
They're only located 38 miles from each other, and there's a Wikipedia page dedicated to this.
I imagine their hockey team. I imagine like their non-rev teams would play in everything too. Like I imagine I know Colgate has half okay decent hockey team, so I imagine those two teams square off a lot, knowing not much else
lacrosse,
about this.
Or
that
I think
too.
They
have
lacrosse rivalry too.
Probably.
But the one that comes to mind here is, so for years, Jack, for years and years and years, they play this annually or just about. Again, they're only 38 miles from each other. Would you believe me if I told you that this series is currently tied?
What? When did they last play?
2016.
Okay, I assume Syracuse won.
Yes, Syracuse has won. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in a row. So at one point, this series was 31, 15, and 5 in Colgate's favor.
Wow. Daggum.
Yeah. So if things shake out how Syracuse, seems to think they will, for the first time since November 17th, 1950, they will have the lead. Or wait, no, because that's just the last time Colgate won was November 18th, 1950. Shoot. I don't know that Syracuse has ever led this series then.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
Wow. I'm glad they're playing this game then. I love this kind of petty stuff. Just even though Colgate never will sniff anything close to what Syracuse can dare to sniff in FBS football, like, it's still fun to take care of these petty things like this.
Well, and that's the thing too. So when in the, I believe this early 60s, when they went to Division 1A and Division 1 AA, Syracuse and Colgate, who again had been playing annually or semi-annually since 1891, though the last time it happened at Colgate was in 1897. It's been played at Syracuse for 62 times in a row or something like that. Basically, they've only played, this is their sixth meeting since 1961. They played 3 times in the 80s, once in 2010, once in 2016, and then now. I'm not going to blame this one on college realignment. I think this is, a la University of Chicago saying we're going to bow out of major athletics, or WashU saying we're going to de-emphasize major athletics, et cetera, more than, I guess the more than the realignment thing, but it's cool to see stuff like this happen. And I think this is going to be something that I'm going to make a point of to point out this year. We all get Texas and Oklahoma, UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington. The list is way too long this year of things that aren't going to happen much after this year. But in between this, you've got UVA, Maryland, Pitt, West Virginia, Penn State. Those come to mind. I think Texas plays Rice, just things that feel like they should, if you will. They feel college football are still happening. So I'm going to try and call those out where I can. And this is chief among them. I will say this rivalry, it's not a very long Wikipedia page. There's multiple stunts involving airplanes dropping flyers onto campuses with various claims of voodoo and reverse voodoo. Somebody dyed a lake orange. That's obviously Syracuse that dyed a lake orange. Colgate students bombed red paint into Old Archbold Stadium from an airplane.
Oh man.
So yeah, that's old school college football. And I appreciate that. And maybe now there's a roof on the stadium, so you can't really dump red paint onto Syracuse's outdoor football stadium anymore. But that's still neat, and I think it's fun.
Helicopters exist. Anyways, North Carolina, South Carolina, one of the this is an annual game, right? This is an annual rivalry that they No, it's not. Okay, I've just seen it happen.
They played in a bowl game a couple of years, though, I think. Yes, because Shane Beamer got mayo dumped on him.
Oh, that's right.
He missed out on having Mac Brown coated in mayo.
North Carolina's a 2.5-point favorite. South Carolina was kind of half good last year. They figured some stuff out at the end of the season, too. Like,
they
2.5. They did beat Tennessee. So, I mean, I could totally see South. I think I want to go South Carolina here. Just outright.
Yeah, I think that's probably a wise call. I was expecting the line to be in South Carolina's favor. Honestly, they got Spencer Rattler at quarterback, and they, like you said, seemed to figure stuff out last year. So I see no reason why this team couldn't surprise people. And as always, I'm kind of a perennial doubter of UNC's helmet bump that they seem to get every year. So let's call it on both regards.
Yeah, I agree there. Old Dominion travels to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is 16-point favorites. Less than I would have thought. Didn't Old Dominion did they jump to FCS or FBS, or am I making something up here?
They're in Conference USA. They're definitely, or maybe they went over. No, they went over to the Sun Belt. See, all this realignment stuff.
So I know something happened with Old Dominion. Whatever it was specifically.
They were in the Conference USA, and now they're in the Sun Belt.
Okay,
and
that's what
I remember that being a talking point because the Sun Belt used to be perceived as a lesser league than Conference USA, and now it's like, wow, they have all these cool regional rivalries.
Yeah,
what a concept for a league.
I know. It ain't bad. It ain't bad at all. Virginia Tech 16-point favorites. I guess more because Virginia Tech's not going to be great this year. So, maybe this is the upset of the week. Is Old Dominion figure something out? That'd be something.
I've got an FCS pick buried in our shot sheet, but I'm going to save my thoughts on it. Or not, wait, this isn't even an FCS pick. Oops.
No, it's not.
You got me all thrown off with the something moved. It's just Sunbelt. It's not FCS. No.
Yeah. Sunbelt's FBS. They're there. They count. Okay.
Yes.
Moving on. Another one of the notable games of the week. LSU and Florida State. LSU is 2.5-point favorite. Sure, I guess. I don't know how. Florida State's 8th right now, but we have no clue if that's going to be a legit eighth ranking though. Like that just seems weird to me.
I'm not convinced that LSU's like the number 5 team in the country either.
Fair too. Yeah, it's a highlight TV matchup, top 10 versus top 10 for whatever top 10 actually means in week 1 when no one's played any games. But
I just wish they played these both on campus. That would be that'd be nice instead of being in the. I was going to say pro stadiums, but the Citrus Bowl is not a pro stadium.
Nope,
so.
No, it's not.
Whoops.
It is not. It was for a half second when Orlando SC played there, but that was it. Last game, Clemson at Duke. Clemson's a 13-point favorite. I feel confident Clemson's going to pull that one out just fine. Duke, while they did have the Elko bump last year, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a tad bit of regression that happens this year, and Clemson tends to not really regress past like the 8th ranking in the country. So, I like Clemson here outright in with the spread.
Outright. Okay. I don't know if I'm that much of a believer in Duke falling off. It's the first game of the year and it's at Duke, but that's going to be very Orange Stadium if any of my past experiences at Duke are to be believed. But I mean, I guess if you're picking Clemson, you kind of just pick Clemson outright. So yeah. I feel that.
Yeah. Okay. Sicko's Pick of the Week, our second main football tradition that we do annually. Where if you don't know what sickos are, just look up Sickos Committee on Twitter and you'll figure it out from there. In general, in our game, we're gonna this part we talk about games that are you definitely should not watch if you want to stay sane. I think is the definition that I have kind of understood this to be. If you are so engrossed in college football that the weirdest of stuff interests you, you are in the sickos realm.
I try not to pick games involving FCS teams unless I legitimately believe it can be an upset. Though I do legitimately believe, this is what I was talking about before, Northern Iowa could pull off the upset at Iowa State.
Sure.
Referenced Cal being on the road at UNT, referenced West Virginia, Penn State renewing a rivalry. I don't like picking ranked games either. So I was mulling things over. I saw Liberty's playing Bowling Green. I was like, oh wow, Liberty's logo is also a bird on letters. What a weird pairing there. And then I thought about Northwestern at Rutgers because that seems like the definition of sickos. But really what I settled on was Stanford at Hawaii. They're playing at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. God's time on Friday night at Hawaii. Stanford at Hawaii. Stanford favored by 3.5. Jack, do you know Hawaii's current stadium situation?
Oh, isn't Aloha Stadium not in one piece anymore?
It's condemned.
They play. Oh God.
I'm trying to think of a way to describe this.
So do they play on the same property? Are they on a different property now?
No, they're on a different property. They're at their athletics complex. And when I say athletics, we mean in the Olympic sense of the word. They're playing at their track stadium. It's right behind their baseball stadium and next to their pool. It's their on-campus sports complex, if you will. And I don't know. I've seen aerials of this place. It doesn't look like it could seat more than 5,000 people. But Stanford, nominally for at least one more year, a Power 5 school, arguably the most successful school across all athletics combined, is basically going to play. And I didn't come from a crazy football powerhouse high school. I legitimately believe that my high school could seat more.
Most probably could.
More fans than the Hawaii track.
I'm sure. Most high schools with a semblance of football
that it's 11 p.m. on a Friday night. It does not get much more sicko than that.
It's a day game where everyone on that Stanford team is going to be looking forward to being in Hawaii during sunset. It is fake. It is
11 p.m. Jack. It's in the middle of the night.
For us, they're playing it.
Fair.
Yeah, no, for them, that's a day game. That's a day game out there in the middle of the Pacific.
I guess it is still 5 p.m. there. Yeah, good point. Wow.
Yeah,
things are late out there.
No, it's hard to watch Hawaii football if they're playing in Hawaii. For mine, I mean, it's not totally sicko, but I saw that TCU was a 20.5 point favorite over Colorado, which I just found so entertaining. Because TCU is ranked 17th right now after their last game was a terrible showing in the national championship game, and they still have this massive. They're still massive favorites over Colorado in what is Coach Prime worth anything game basically. So I just find it hilarious that the biggest loser in college football playoff national championship history, their next game after that is not exactly a reset game. It's you have to deal with possibly the biggest media storm in college football right now, and that is Colorado football.
You would not guess that it was such a large spread based on the promo coverage.
Right. Yeah. I saw the number. This doesn't make sense. That did not make sense. The Colorado retooled. They absolutely retooled. They retooled from basically the bottom of the barrel though. So I heard they might suck still. I mean, who knows? They probably will. Hard to. This is the biggest test we've seen in FBS of truly remaking your entire team in 1 year via the transfer portal. So
Yep.
it will certainly be a test going both ways. Does TCU still have it? And did Colorado actually do something here? So,
yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. That's for sure.
Jake, do you have any trivia for me before we close this Zoom call?
It's not out of my personal site today because I spent some time yesterday with demographic data for Georgia Tech. Essentially, the question that we were looking at was, is the Atlanta Metro really punching above its weight in terms of tech admissions? We found that yes, at least to me, it was unsurprising. A lot more Fulton representation, and then followed by a couple of your other Metro Atlanta counties there in terms of kids enrollment per 1,000. So we did normalize it based on population of the county. Was just pretty interesting there. Other things that we saw looking at it was that the second biggest identified geography behind Fulton County, who currently has about 4,300 last year enrollees, was the nation of China, followed by the nation of India, followed by the county of Gwinnett and the state of California, which I thought was just biggest two countries in the world by population. California, obviously, the big
basically a country, state. But a state, yeah.
And then, Cobb, Texas, Florida, DeKalb, unknown out of state, Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Forsyth, North Carolina, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Illinois, South Korea, Canada. No real surprises there, but was certainly interesting. All that to say, I found this all out of a very interesting fact book. Jack, my question today is very simple. According to the Georgia Tech fact book for demographics, basically they got stats on alumni, they got stats on faculty, this, that, and the other thing, everything you could possibly imagine and more. Right. That they can, legally put out there without being identifiable. Jack, my question for you is, what is the top employer of Georgia Tech's alumni?
Okay. Let's think this through a little bit. A lot of engineering going on.
Well, and that's a good point too. I do want to point out a couple more stats, but stay on that train of thought because good thoughts. I did have breakdowns by college as well, and those stretched back to 2013, not employment, but just in terms of enrollment.
Yeah, okay.
Some really interesting stuff. Over the last 10 years, the compound annual growth rate for computing bachelor degrees is 14.2% growth. There are 4,300 enrolled computer science undergrad students in 2022. There were only 1,300 in 2013, which is crazy growth.
Yeah.
You hear that, and that's nuts. The number of master's students pursuing a computing degree has gone from 360 in 2013 to 13,042 in 2022.
Isn't there a lot of online? A lot of that's online, right? Yeah.
A lot of it is online. OMCS. It's like the program that's like driving Georgia Tech's growth. That and the online masters of analytics and the engineering one that they do there. There's an 18.5% compound annual growth rate among engineering master's students. So just those jumped right out of the page at me. 7% CAGR for College of Design undergraduates, which I thought was surprising. Feel like that's kind of an underrepresented in terms of their size. Their engineering bachelor students have actually decreased by 2% since 2013, 2% annually since 2013, from 9,300 to 7,900. Oh, and there's one other one that I wanted to call out. While business was flat at exactly 1,300, give or take 2 dozen
same building
undergrads.
There's no additional class space. It's always, every class is full anyways. Like there's no room to grow in that building unless you start doing undergrad classes at 8 p.m., which they ain't doing that. So
so I thought it was interesting, seeing just how much the College of Design grew when the College of or Ivan Allen didn't see nearly the same growth. I won't say nearly the same growth. They both grew a lot, but just interesting trends there. All that to say, my question today is what is the largest employer, knowing all of that, of Georgia Tech grads?
Largest employer, knowing all that. That's what you said. Engineering was. So it'd be a lot of engineering folks, a lot of computing folks nowadays. Neither of which are by strengths in terms of industry and stuff like that.
I do want to say on the engineering thing, engineering is very bifurcated in terms of places that people go in order to, do their engineering, right?
Is it just the state of Georgia?
You're on the right track. You are on the right track. Keep thinking like that. It's not the state of Georgia, but it is affiliated with the state of Georgia.
Okay.
And perhaps I'm being a little semantic in making you make a difference there. That's your hint.
So, wait, what? Wait, is there like a state contracting engineering group in the state? Or
you could say that.
Okay, this is where my knowledge kind of goes away in terms of how this is organized.
The largest employer,
or is there a union? Is there a union? Is that what I should be going for?
No, okay. No. You're gonna hate me for this.
Oh no.
The largest employer of Georgia Tech grads is Georgia Tech.
Oh fuck you. I should have guessed it's just from GTRI, honestly. I should have just thought there. That's where I should have started.
No, GTRI is a separate line item. 600 GTRI grads, they're 10th or 8th, on the list. Just straight up Georgia Tech is number one with 2,746 of Georgia Tech's approximately 200,000. I think, approximately 200,000.
So 1% common employer there.
About 1.25%.
Okay. All right.
So wild. I do want to give some other. So where I was trying to start fielding guesses is when you think about engineers, a lot of your different engineering disciplines go to different companies, right? So mechanical engineers, BMEs, EEs, a lot of them wind up at different fields, and a lot of that's really split. A lot of MEs wind up as like the plant engineer at a plant kind of thing. Google's your number 2 with about 1,200. Microsoft number 3 with 1,000. Amazon 950. Home Depot 660. Apple 650. Lockheed Martin, that's AEs. A lot of them go to specific places. That's your Lockheed Martin. GTRI with 600. Delta with 520. That's again with a lot of these you're getting. Apple's going to have design. Lockheed's going to have MEs and EEs and AEs. Mm-hmm. And then after Delta with about 520, you've got Intel with 470. So an interesting mix of options there. But you got to think when you're thinking Georgia Tech, I think at least when I was in school, one of the things was like, man, I feel like you never run into Georgia Tech folks in like the bureaucracy or the management of Georgia Tech. A lot of those tech grads are tech staff, and by staff I should say professors, right? Yep. So that's the people who are teaching the ME and the EE and the business and the design. A lot of those are, hey, I went here, I know this professor, or, I'm working as a post grad, or I'm, I wonder if, I don't think most PhD students count for that because they're probably still counted as enrolled students, but who knows? Maybe they're counting our friends who, went on to do masters and PhDs and are currently on the HR payroll because they're in labs over there. I don't know what the exact breakdown is, but yeah.
Solid news.
I told you it's an interesting question.
If you go to Georgia Tech, you have a 1% chance of working for Georgia Tech, basically.
It worked for Brent Key, did it not?
It did work for Brent. Good old Bronk got his job.
Eileen Morales, Brent Key, Kenny Thorne. That's at least 3 off the top of my head out of the 17 sports. I guess he gets a little weird with swimming and track and stuff like that. But
not bad. Not
all
bad.
more to think about.
Not bad at all. We went. I think we went longer than we thought we were gonna do. We told ourselves there's gonna be plus or minus 40 minutes on volleyball. So I think we got a lot in for a week with basically no football news and 2 total games. 2 games were played.
We always go longer than we thought.
We always do. We always do. All right. Well, in that sense, take us home, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us through the summer. It's exciting to be back in sports season. If you're around at the Benz on Friday, feel free to give us a holler. We look forward to seeing you there. In terms of finding us in the meantime, you can find us at fromtherumbleseat.com. You can find us via email, fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com, Twitter at FTRS blog. Jack's at Jack Nicholas. I'm at Jake Grant 98. You can find Section 103 there as well at Section 103 and section103.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at From the Rebel Seat. You can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are distributed. As always, tell your friends. We do appreciate it. Word of mouth is the most powerful way to tell people about a lot of stuff, whether that's this fine podcast or just the great thing about going to a tech game or, selling somebody that you might know who wants to attend there as a student. Never underestimate the power of a few kind words in general. As always, good night, good luck, and good luck.